Welcome back, everybody. This is Eric and Matt, and this is Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit, your beacon of freedom and the American way of life. Tune in every Friday for a new episode as we dive into the world of liberty and what makes our country great. All right, guys, welcome back. This is Eric and Matt here with LLP.
Hello.
And man, what a great week it has been. And welcome back. We definitely appreciate y'all tuning back in. Not to mention all the awesome support that you guys have given us over these few years that we've been taking on LLP. And I think it'd be an interesting time now for us to sort of reflect a little bit back on last year and also talk about how things are going to go moving forward. And we'll talk about some of our sustains, some of the things we need to improve, some good things that happened, bad things that happened. And we'll just dive into this. I think it's going to be a ton of fun. So definitely appreciate you guys tuning back in. Yeah, man. How's life treating you?
It's great, man. I mean, it feels like this year flew by so quick. And, you know, before you knew it, it was 2022. So, you know, I feel like we skipped a whole year. It really blew me away. Whenever I have to write a check, I still put 2021. I'm like, wow, how did this even happen?
That's right.
So, I mean, so much good stuff. There was, you know, obviously 2021 was a year that was, you know, less desirable. You know, it's very forgettable at that point. But, you know, when we reflect back on, you know, just the entire year as a whole, like the advancements we made as a company, the channel, and new ventures that we have planned, I think 2022 is going to be absolutely amazing, and I'm really stoked to get it going.
I think there's a lot of people that have certainly, you know, passed a very, very important threshold in their life in terms of, you know, where they want to see things go, not only with our direction as a country, but just their personal development, right? I think that folks have really been focusing on personal development a heck of a lot more, and we are going to dive into that a little bit in today's podcast, amongst many other things. Before we get started, I would like to thank our friends at Sonoran Desert Institute for supporting LLP. If you are interested in a career in gunsmithing technology, reloading, you want to learn a little bit more about the business side, they are definitely the group of people you need to look into for your distance learning needs. They got some great instructors, awesome financial incentives, wonderful programs set up by some of the best people in the business. So check them out, Sonoran Desert Institute, and tell them we sent you over here from LLP.
Right on.
Okay, so with this whole thing, you know, this whole personal development thing, you know, maybe that's something we should really kind of spot on first here. You know, I think it goes without saying that we could spend a heck of a lot of time talking about the things that were negative about last year, or things that, you know, we weren't really happy about. And you have to kind of like, you know, confront that bull that's in the room sometimes. You got to grab that bull by the horn and you've got to confront it. And it's not to say that we aren't going to be doing some confronting here in this particular podcast, but I think a lot of people have looked at these last couple of years, especially with, you know, so many folks have been indoors and, you know, not traveling as much for certain reasons, which we won't talk about. I think you know how things have been going. So people, when they're in these isolated situations, not only, let's just say, politically isolated, right, but also just isolated physically, right? One starts to kind of think about a lot of things. You start to reassess what your priorities are, what you really want in life, what your happiness really means to you, what your political and worldview might even be. I mean, some of us question everything when we're in these situations, and
as you should, though. I mean, the country was built around one thing, and that was questioning taxes in particular. So imagine if, you know, everybody was just a good, you know, British Tory, and they just continued to pay the taxes, the higher taxes without representation. You know, we wouldn't be sitting here with the freedoms that we have now if we just, you know, kept our heads down and decided to go with the flow. It took just a few, at the time, non-Americans, because they weren't Americans yet, to just ask, why are we being taxed? And just a simple question sparked a revolution, which made the country what it is today. So I always tell everybody, including my 5-year-old daughter, like, it's okay to question, but just be, when someone gives you the answer, accept it. So I mean, it's one of those things where like they always ask you why, and you give them the answer. Just accept it.
Well, one thing that 2021 has certainly taught us, and I think if anyone is being honest with themselves and paying attention and everything like that, if it's one thing that year gave us last year, was that people are so ready to throw someone under the bus or to shame them or cancel them just because there's one tiny thing that they might disagree with in someone's thought process or their logic. And somehow we've created a nation of cowards, right? And people are so cowardly, and they can't just simply debate the issues with someone. And you know what? I have friends that I might disagree with on a few certain points when it comes to certain things in my life that I consider to be very important. But it doesn't mean that I'm going to sit there and go, oh, well, because we don't agree on these 2 points, I can't be your friend anymore. People just have forgotten that, it's all right to have a few differences, right? People, they want to, get into their little tribes, and they want everything to be hunky-dory and for every little opinion to be exactly in line with what they feel that narrative should be. And that's a really scary place to be, because it's not really a breeding ground for like honest and forthcoming thought, right? It's not a breeding ground for, independent thought. And I think that's really like one of the most quintessential American traits that we have is our ability to question, as you said.
Absolutely.
But our ability to be objective, right? And to look at both sides. And what we've really strived for in 2021, I think, as a country, many people, not just left or right or black or white or, different religious differences and all of that crap aside, and just getting down to like the things that make us human, I think more and more people are starting to see this division that's in front of us, and they're going, you know what? I've been told all this crap about these type of people here, but there's a lot more people that are going, now, you know what? I'm going to really just try to listen to what the other side's trying to say and understand where we're all coming from here. Most people realize that the majority of people at large are just good people trying to live their life and be happy, and you just want that for everyone else. And I don't mean it in some like weird kumbaya moment where we're all going to sit around a campfire and put our differences aside and have a sing-along. No, people are still going to have their moral and religious dogmas they cling to. People are still going to have their vices that they cling to. I mean, let's face it, right? Life is full of vices. There's things that we're never going to be able to escape in terms of our deepest and darkest human inhibitions, right? So we're never going to escape those things in their holistic fashion, but it's important to recognize that people are starting to become much more objective and much more willing to kind of hear people out, because they're tired of being spoon-fed that narrative. The media has just tried to just really drive home a very, very specific and divisive narrative, and I think the majority of people, especially closer to the middle of the line, are certainly starting to go, wait a minute, something ain't right. I mean, look at CNN's viewership has dropped by like 90%.
Yeah, up to 90%
in certain
and I mean, I think a certain amount of that is clickbait. I don't think they lost 90%, but I think that they have lost a substantial amount of viewerships. Their Nielsen ratings are horrendous. And you're just getting raked across the coals, and you're getting not right out of here when you have someone like Joe Rogan that gets 11.7 million viewers on average compared to daily, by the way, compared to someone that's on prime time television only getting 1.5. I mean, that is over 10 times the viewership in the core demographic that you want to be in. It's not like your show is being consumed by people that are outside of your demographic. You're getting 11.7 million views, market penetration in your core demographic. That's outstanding.
Do you know why so many people watch Joe Rogan?
I have a good idea why.
I think I have a good idea. So why do you... I don't want this to be just about Rogan, but Rogan has made a lot of news in this last year. I mean, he's always been a pretty staunch figure in just the freedom world, right? The freedom of choice, the objectivity and everything. But Rogan really has made some waves. And why? What do people really, really desire the most right now when it comes to the information they're receiving from a source that they are supposed to be able to trust? What is the one thing they want the most?
I think it's non-biased and objectivity. So what
Bingo.
I see, and this is just me personally, I watch the show like regularly. I'm here at the shop. It's on the TV. All the employees there working there, we all consume this content
Right.
willingly, not under duress. So what we notice is that he's able to carry a conversation with a guest that he has an opposing view on, but they're able to carry this conversation in a meaningful way, meaning they're not getting hit with roadblocks. You see it all the time in debates. Answer the question. You're not answering the question. Guess what? If he answers the question, he's not gonna stall the conversation. He's just gonna keep going. He might come back to it to get clarification, or he might ask for clarification on drilling down on specific items of the question, which he's really good at. Like, okay, well, this is the question. You don't want to answer the question. I get it. How about we dissect that? How about we ask a subset of that question? And if I can get an answer to that, then we'll know where you lie at on a whole.
It's completely okay to say, you know what, I don't have the answer to this question, but we can look it up. We can figure it out. You know, I don't have access to those facts, but we can find those facts, right?
Yep.
We've got the window of the world right here in front of us. We can look it up. And I think there's something refreshing about that. There's a reason that Joe's viewership has done great things, and the reason it's growing in such a way that it is, you know? Because the dude is fair and he's objective. All right. Another guy that I started following in 2021 that I'm proud to say I follow, and I'll just mention this as well, is Russell Brand. You know, I really, really appreciate Russell's takes on a lot of things because he's very fair. He's very objective. He just breaks things down. Now, of course, he's going to interject a little bit of opinion in there, but that's okay. You know it's opinion. It's not like he's trying to go, well, you should think this way or that way because of this reason. He's just simply going to point out the hypocrisy in the situation. It's up to you to go, well, Russell, yeah, that seems pretty, a little bit of hypocrisy going on right there. So I can really appreciate that approach. He just dissects things and breaks it down in a basic way that's easy for people to understand, and he makes fantastic points. All right, politically, is Russell Brand someone that lines completely 110% politically with someone like me? Probably not. Well, we might not only agree on half of the stuff, or
Probably
it might even be less.
Half. Yeah, probably less
right?
than half.
But the stuff we do agree on, it's such a hot point issue for me that it's like, you know what? This dude's pretty cool. You know, we might disagree on some stuff, but you know what? Russell Brand seems like a dude I could crack a beer with and have a good time. And he just seems like the kind of dude you could talk to easy. Just like Joe seems like the kind of guy you could totally, his characteristics, you know, he's just the kind of guy it's easy to talk to. And I think that's what people crave, man. If 2021 tells us one thing, looking back on it in retrospect, is that people crave, honesty and objectivity when it comes to the things that they're being told about the world and what's going on around them. They don't want division. They're tired of that. That old narrative is just not working right. So
that's not going to stop them from trying to spoon feed it to you, because even with Biden's last visit to Atlanta here, I was watching it live, and it was nothing but divisive speech. And I was sitting there watching it, and I just can't believe it. I'm like, this is not the 60s. This is not the 70s. And I know we talked off camera about this, but I mean, it's like the politicians nowadays are just so enamored with like trying to keep everybody separated. And people are seeing through it. That's the beauty. And if one thing from 2021 has shown the entire world, specifically America, though, is that your mental state is very fragile, and a lot of people took it for granted. There are a lot of people that are codependent, that need somebody to help them in their daily life, not physically, but they need that conversation. They yearn for it. They're like, I have to talk to somebody. And I think having everybody locked away showed the world, like, man, we really need to like communicate with each other. We need to have meaningful conversations with each other. And it just showed everybody how fragile the mental state is, especially with the children. I mean, keep kids out of school for a week, it's okay. You keep kids out of school for like 6 months, and you start to see some regression in their learning. They start to get dumber. Like, you don't want a bunch of dumb kids running around, all right? You don't want it.
Well, think about the times in the military when you'll go and receive some block of instruction, right? And the first thing the instructor will tell you is, this is a relatively like one-sided conversation. Like, I'm going to put all this information out and want you to save all of your questions until the end. And by the time that you've gone through this 2 or 3 hour long death by PowerPoint dissertation on the thing that you're trying to be taught, in the end, it's like, well, gosh, I mean, he covered it well. And sure, the information is good. But after a while, you're so kind of mentally numb to the subject you're even learning that you forget what your question was in the first place. So it's like that one-sided characteristic that so many people are kind of used to, just being spoon-fed something and not taking the time to actually do their own research and to figure things out on their own. And we're not saying that some of the stuff the mainstream media says isn't true. Of course, some of it is objectively and factually true. It's just the way it's packaged, the delivery has a lot to do with it, right? When you can tell that the delivery of a given narrative is meant to purposely and meaningfully influence your thought process in a way that is biased, is certainly an issue. Now, without going too much further on that subject, I would just say that that's where a lot of people are in 2021 in terms of the socio-economic, political, let's just say life sphere that we all sort of live in, and all of the different prongs of society that grab at us on an everyday basis. I think most people are definitely tired of the division. So that's one distinctive observation that we can make about 2021 for sure. I would say, the year wasn't too bad. We had a lot of great fun. We went on some really interesting hunts. So I'd like to talk about, we'll kind of change lanes a little bit here and talk a little bit about, the channel and Ballistic Inc. and
Absolutely.
how things have been going business-wise and how things have been going in terms of content. We've definitely tried to do a lot more hunting content in 2021.
Love it.
We do have some awesome hunts on the way that have not been edited yet that were filmed in 2021. So you'll be seeing those coming up soon. A big bore revolver hunt.
Oh, yeah. Excellent content. And that's not due to our laziness. That is just due to deer season being at the very end of the year. And I think Georgia deer season ends on the 9th, January 9th. So if we're out there hunting on January, 1st through the 8th, that video is not going up for another week or two anyways. So,
That's right.
But stay tuned. Great stuff on the way.
Well, we part of the reasoning was because some of these big bore revolvers, we ended up getting some Smith & Wesson revolvers in, and we didn't get them in quite soon enough to really catch the beginning of deer season. Because Georgia has a fairly long deer season that's open. I think rifle season starts in like as early as, I want to say October, like October 13th or something like that.
October 13th or 14th, but then you have primitive weapons before that, though.
That's right, and you got archery season and all, but there's been a lot of interesting developments in terms of deer hunting in Georgia. We're not going to go too far down the rabbit hole on too many of the details, but they are talking about opening up nuisance permits for alligators, so that's going to be interesting, because the landowner we deal with, we do have alligators down here, so that'll be cool.
Too.
Also, we've been catching a lot of hogs on our cameras down there, so we got a sounder of hogs to deal with. So you're gonna definitely be seeing some hog hunting content coming out this year. So stay tuned for that, as well as some daytime predator hunting that we're going to be doing with Rick, the urban air gunner. He's back to doing videos.
Yes.
So we're
Nice
definitely going to be
too.
doing some stuff with Rick this year.
If you want to know about, predator hunting, that's the guy. He's been doing it his whole life, and he is extremely good at it. I mean, if you said pick one guy to get you on a yote or a gator or whatever it is, bobcat, whatever, he's the man.
That's right. Well, we got a lot of hogs on the property that we've got to deal with, so they're not eating up all the deer food, because they do that. We feed them a lot of corn, and I guess we can kind of touch on this briefly. So we'll talk a little bit about our feeding regimen for what we're going to be doing for the deer this year. So we're changing up the nutrition program in terms of how we are feeding and managing our deer on the property. These last 2 or 3 years, we have access to a fairly large farm in South Georgia. Our buddy Linton owns a place, and he's a really good dude. But we've always just fed like straight corn, and I think we planted some mustard greens and things like that. But we really are going to start varying up what we're going to be feeding them. We're actually going to do a blend of food this year. And what's interesting is, in the vein of this podcast, it's great that we can talk about this, but it's also interesting because I don't even know how much of this I've told Matt yet already. So it'll be kind of cool to rehash it just for you guys' sake as well as ours. But we're going to be changing up the food, and we're going to be doing a blend that we're going to be feeding them year-round. So we're going to start feeding the deer year-round now, which traditionally we would always just feed them around wintertime.
Right.
We do hunt over food. All right, that's the method we do, is deer stands and blinds and ground blinds, and then we hunt over bait. For filming purposes, it just makes more sense to hunt over bait. We can set the cameras up, get everything ready, and it just makes life a little easier. However, we've always traditionally just ran lines of corn, and don't get me wrong, the deer love corn. It's a great high-carb snack. They love it. They absolutely love corn. But we want to get a little bit better nutrition for them. So we're going to feed year-round, and we're going to go with high-protein type of feed. We're going to do a 4 or 5-way blend, and I'm probably going to have to find a co-packer to have this stuff made. But I don't know what blend we're going to use in terms of the specific percentages and stuff. But we're probably going to do dried peanuts, shelled sunflower seeds. We're going to do corn. We're going to do soybeans, and then I'll probably throw some corn in there, obviously. Now, the protein pellets, we are going to add some actual just protein pellets. I learned something about protein pellets. Maybe you guys don't know this or not. It's hard to feed the deer straight protein because they actually don't like the taste of it. It's kind of bitter.
I can see that.
They don't like the taste of it straight, so you actually have to mix it with the corn. I didn't know that. My dumb self, I was putting out protein thinking, all right, deer, get big.
And that's why they're always on the ground.
Yeah.
We'd come back and we'd still remember like they ate everything except the protein.
That's right. You got to mix it. That's the secret, guys. So this 5-way mix will be very nutritious, lots of protein. And here's the thing, growing big bucks starts in the womb, right? Like mom's got to carry a successful baby deer. That baby deer starts growing in that womb. So the better nutrition mom has, the better that baby buck is going to grow right from the day one to the minute he becomes a harvestable deer. And obviously the more protein we're interjecting into the feed, the bigger, more protein they have, the better the antler growth, the larger the tines, the thicker the tines. That whole jazz. You grow bigger deer. Now, we don't just hunt for trophies down there.
Matter of fact,
we hunt for meat as well.
That's right. I was going to say, matter of fact, that trophy is the last thing that I mean, if one pops out, absolutely. But that's not the main goal.
Right.
And I think I can safely say that for everybody that we've brought down there. We weren't hunting for headgear. That wasn't the goal.
Now, don't get me wrong. Bo Winkle walks out. We're going to have a little talk with him. Now, on the food plots, all right, we usually plant about 7 or 8 acres of food plots. This upcoming year, we're actually going to be planting about 13 acres of food plots, and it's all going to be high-protein stuff. So we're going to do an entire regimen where we plant through the spring, throughout the year. We're going to have multiple plantings, okay? And I know some of you that are into deer hunting have heard about year-long deer management, not only feed, but also planting summer, spring, winter, fall plots, that sort of thing. So we are going to do a full encompassing feeding regimen for the deer, and I'm so excited for this year's deer season. Oh my God, I can't wait.
You told me about this plan, and yes, there is a price for it, but to get down there it's not instant. So after 2 or 3 years, when you get this whole management program going, it's a beautiful thing because you get to sit there and you get to see these, and even if they're not just these humongous bucks, even if they're just really big doe and you're trying to get just as much meat as you can, it's really like you get to see the fruit of your labor. You get down like, hey, we put down this 4-way, we put down this 5-way, we planted the food plots, we managed this habitat for 2 years, and now you're just seeing these bruisers and these monsters step out, and man, it's just awesome.
Well, we had a great year in terms of deer camp and deer hunting, and I always like to recap that. I think I want to make a tradition of every year. We want to make sure that like the first batch of podcasts we get back to filming, especially here we are around the first of the year, I want to make sure we really recap deer season because, man, it is such an exciting time, man. I love that time of year. I love observing the wildlife. I love watching them. we've discovered some new hunting spots. It's just always fun to get in there and scout and look for sheds and just really nerd out and get into all the minutia of deer hunting. And I love every bit of it. Now, I'll quickly mention, we had a very memorable hunt, which unfortunately Matt couldn't make it on this hunt, but I'll just kind of quickly break it down a little bit. We had John and Shermichael from Guns Out TV. They came down to visit, and we had Roy from Brownells, and it was fantastic. We actually were able to get an entire episode for Warrior Poet Network. If you guys aren't familiar with that, there is a minor paywall that you have to get through, but it's worth it. Sign up for the Warrior Poet Network on the Warrior Poet Society, and you can get all this exclusive content. This is not necessarily a plug for them. I just want you to be aware of it because we're in this episode. So if you want to, see this in its totality, you're going to have to go through Warrior Poet. But it was an awesome hunt. It was Sir Michael and John's first deer hunt. They've never hunted before at all. And man, the success that they had was one for the record books, man.
I saw those pictures,
They had a great time.
Well, what really blew my skirt up, proverbial speaking, is that they were just so genuinely happy to be out there. And I'll tell you what, it's miserable. Like when you're out there Eric loves to get into the stands super early. So the only downside to hunting with Eric is that he loves to get to the stand early, which isn't a huge problem at night because you're in the stand by like 4:30. But you're also in this stand at like 4:30 in the morning. Yeah. And the sun comes up at like 6.
Yeah.
So you're creeping in there and it's like 23 degrees. And you're just, it's miserable, cold. Absolutely miserable. So to see that them so happy and ecstatic, and the fact that they didn't want to leave, like that is what first time hunting is all about. Like that, oh man. Like
it is tough, man.
I wasn't even there, and I want to just caveat on that or piggyback on this. It's because you guys blew Ballistic Inc. up for the Christmas holidays that I was not able to attend this trip. I had it planned. I was like, no, man, we're good. I'm going to be there the entire time. And literally like the day I was supposed to come down, I called Eric and was like, hey, bro, I can't do it. There's so many orders in this queue that I have to prioritize you guys getting your packages over hunting this time.
Well, to be fair, don't stop buying T-shirts, please.
Yeah, don't do that. But I'm just letting you know that was the reason. Because, I felt terrible. Because I called Eric. I called you. I was like, dude. He's like, well, what do you mean? You're supposed to be down here. And they're like, I can't do it. But.
Well, we've got a ton of awesome hunts planned this year. And I'm hoping that we're going to do some daytime predator stuff, which is going to be amazing. Being able to get some coyotes to come in daytime. I'm going to be relying on Rick for that. Make sure you subscribe to Urban Air Gunner. Rick is a great dude, and he's going to be getting back to making more content, and I can't wait to be a part of that. And, of course, we do have a sounder of hogs to deal with, so I have a feeling the hunting's not over. We've got a lot of stuff to deal with. And keeping the predators in check and keeping the hog population in check is very important for the overall health of the deer population because, if the hogs are consuming the resources the deer need to grow, they're not going to have the nutritional capability, the nutrition they need to be able to survive and everything. So we don't want to have the hog come in and taking everything over. So we have to keep the hog population under control. You have to keep the predator population under control because, coyotes will take down your fawns. They will decimate turkey eggs. Same thing for bobcats.
Foxes.
Now, you do want some foxes and bobcats around because they help keep the field mice population down. So if you go out in your barn and you see a whole bunch of mice scattering every time you open the door, you might want to lay off of the bobcats and foxes for a while, kind of let them mellow for a while. But the coyotes, we can definitely take down as many of those as we find because they certainly can decimate an area. If you get a large group of coyotes come in, it can be bad news for the local population, especially the deer and turkey.
Yeah, they really do a number on the younger deer, and it puts a lot of pressure on them as well. And I think that once you control the coyote population, it's much easier to manage that habitat, especially with deer and turkey as well. I haven't had a chance to do any turkey hunting at the farm, but that's, in all honesty, Georgia has a very short turkey season. I think it's like 1 week or 2 weeks.
I think turkey season's coming up in February.
It's in February, yeah. So but it's a very short season, but
10 days or something.
yeah, and I'm gonna try to get down there and do some. But what I will tell you is that I've heard some stories about calling in a turkey and having a bobcat show up right next to you while you're set up, because guess what? They hear that turkey call and they're hungry too. So
That's right.
that's just another reason that you need to control that bobcat population.
So 2022 is definitely a year of hunting for us in terms of the channel. And I'm looking forward to getting more hunting content in. And I've already had a look at some of the scheduling and some of the things that we have on the docket for filming this year. And I think it's going to be a ton of fun. So for me, 2021 was a year of hunting, a year of fishing, a year of the outdoors. And I'll tell you what, I was so happy with it that I think I'm just going to make it much, much more of a point moving forward to spend way more time outdoors than I probably should. You can never spend enough time outdoors.
You really can't.
But this year, definitely tons of outdoor activities we have planned for the channel. So I'm super excited about that. Now, right now, while we are filming this podcast, SHOT Show's going on. Mm-hmm. Before we get to SHOT Show, though, so how are things at Ballistic Inc? I mean, I noticed that in December you had a ton of orders going on, but this shirt thing that we've been doing these years has come together quite well. But how was the year for Ballistic Inc?
I mean, it's definitely grown exponentially. It started off doing, just your merch, and then it turned into, us, partnering and doing everybody's merch. And, we work with a lot of the manufacturers. We do a lot of their stuff as well, shirts and hats and, swag. They want a lot of the stuff from SHOT Show and stuff like that. You guys are going to see some of that. Not with we don't put our logos on it, but yes. So it's been a great year overall, considering, everything that happened. And I'll owe that to us using, from the beginning, USA made garments. That really, really helped us out as a company. We didn't really see any shortages on t-shirts because all of our stuff is already made here in America. What we did see was some substantial price increases. So you would have noticed that on the website. Our t-shirts used to be $24.99, but they raised the prices of the shirts. We can't pass 100% of that cost on to the customer, obviously. So we met in the middle. So we did raise the price of the shirts up. We didn't pass 100% of that on to the consumer. So the prices did have to increase. That's inflation. That's the way it works. But that helped us out a great deal. Business, you guys have shown so much support for both the content creators and us as a company. We get emails all the time about people saying, hey, we really are happy that you guys are a company that represents, gun owners and the Second Amendment, and you're not afraid to put out t-shirt designs that might go against the grain, which, we're really not. We're all welcoming, we're all accepting. So that helped out a great deal. We were able to take those profits from that and invest back into the company. So we bought a ton of new equipment. So we got some new embroidery machines, new printers, and those are not inexpensive by any means. But but that allows us to, to really put back into the company the money that we're making so that we can put better products out. And then also, we're not letting out too much information here, but we are starting a American clothing manufacturing company as well that is going to be like an offshoot as well. So it's 100% USA manufactured. We're doing the manufacturing. So big things on the rise, and we love made in the USA products. We love bringing back American manufacturing and providing Americans with jobs.
I feel like I can say this in this particular podcast and everyone will understand, but we are also going to be introducing some interesting food items.
Yes.
All right. So I don't want to spill the beans too much, but if anybody's ever had our steaks before, that my wife's dry rub that she makes is
perfect.
Arguably some of the best dry rub there is. I mean, look, we fed our steaks to a ton of different people, and they've been so freakishly happy with them that we've decided that we're probably going to start offering Brandy's dry rub as a product. So stay tuned for that. We got to get the recipe just right and make sure it's up to our standards. But you will see Brandy's famous dry rub available for sale. So we'll have some other products that we're going to make available and everything like that. And I feel it's also worth mentioning, too, that we've taken a little bit of a tiny step back from the man-can program. It's not that we're not going to continue it. We are going to do it. It's just going to come back in a slightly different way. 2020 and 2021 put some serious damper on supply for a lot of people, not just us.
It's rough, yeah.
So, with us not being able to meet the demand for a lot of the supplies that we try to get in for our cans, we've decided to kind of take a step back, and we're going to be re-envisioning man cans as a new, different type of model that will be understanding of some of the supply issues and still allow a lot of the things that you want to buy to be pretty much on demand and available. So if it's for sale and you buy it, it ships. It's not. We're not going to do any more pre-order stuff because we wound up having some issues with supply and making some people wait longer than we really wanted to. And I don't like that. I know we're a have it now type of society. So the way we're going to do the boxes from now on, I'll let you know when we're ready to announce it. You'll see on Iraq Veteran when we're ready to announce it. But we're probably just going to build the boxes out, buy the contents, build them, have them ready, do the announcement, and when they're gone, they're gone. And then once that box is sold out, we'll build the other box, get them in. So we're going to do it a little bit differently. We'll source everything. I'm sorry.
Man, you and that pop filter.
I know, man. So we will source everything on the front end and then have them all pre-built. And that way, when you buy them, they ship instantly. So be expecting that. So if you're looking for, great merch boxes of just really cool stuff that we put together, that we use, we will be re-envisioning that process and getting that out. And of course, Matt will be a huge part of that, and Ballistic Inc. will be a huge part of that. So I'm glad we got that out of the way.
Yeah, man.
Now, right now, SHOT Show's going on. I want to talk about that a little bit. So 2021, an awesome year with plenty of issues as well as improves and sustains.
Plenty of issues.
Plenty of issues, but some sustains, right? And I think we went over some of the positive points. I mean, look, hunting season was awesome. I loved it. Business-wise, not too bad. I do want to talk about SHOT Show. We are not attending SHOT Show this year, and we're obviously here back in the rear with the gear, doing our thing, and not at SHOT Show running like madmen through the booths like we always do. And, I'm not saying that I don't support the NSSF or that I don't support what they're trying to accomplish or anything like that. I've always, philosophically and business-wise supported SHOT Show and supported the NSSF. In fact, the last time we were at SHOT Show, I think we actually did a thing where we walked around with the NSSF
you did, yeah.
and did this thing. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Now, I will admit, I have to say this for prosperity, that I made a comment when we were running around on the SHOT Show floor. I was like, man, look at it. There's just people going everywhere. It's like a Pakistani meat market. And I thought it was just the funniest comment ever. And they cut my comment out of that video. And I was quite displeased with that.
Yeah, you guys censored him.
I wanted my quirky little comment to be out there in the internet land forever. And it just got cut. But needless to say, it's not a Pakistani meat market in here. But it is at SHOT Show. Now, the attendance at SHOT Show is considerably lower than what it has been in last years. I mean, so the attendance is lower. Also, I believe I saw where a lot of companies, decided to sort of sit it out this particular year. Now, I'm not going to sit here and speculate as to what that reason is, okay? But I think you know what the reason is, and we're not even going to go there, right? And I think a lot of people, how do I say this without saying it? I think that a lot of people are certainly tired of the travel restrictions and sort of this sort of thing. Let's just leave it at that. I'm not even going to talk about it because it's just crazy, right?
That's beating a dead horse.
It's beating a dead horse at this point. We all know. We all know. So I think a lot of people are just literally and totally done with it. And that's probably part of the reason. And but you've seen a lot of innovation in the gun industry, right? There's been a heck of a lot of new products coming out. Some of the old classics are coming back in some cases, and in many cases, some really new cutting-edge tech is coming out. Like Springfield Armory's got some new bullpup, which is really cool.
The Helion.
They brought back the Browning High Power. So it's a really interesting time to be a gun owner. I mean, there's never been more choices and more new things coming out. I mean, Smith & Wesson just released their new pistol, the CSX, which is cool.
I heard it hits like a freight train.
Yeah. And then, I mean, Federal's got their 30 carry now, a new carry round they're coming out with. I mean,
SIG has their new round out, the 277.
Dude.
Yeah, man.
All right, you're an ammo company. Okay, and you look at you look at the workload, and you look at all the shortages on primers and powder and
Yep.
all of this stuff, and you go, well, how can we completely reinvigorate the firearms industry? Oh, I know, a new carry round.
I don't get it. You did like obviously the worst move in ammo manufacturing history is trying to create a new round in the midst of an ammo shortage.
You're selling millions of rounds of 9mm that people are clamoring to have. It's kind of strange. Like, why come out with a new round? That's just sort of strange. Now look.
I don't know, man.
You can't stand in the way of innovation, though. Okay, now I haven't had a chance to get my hands on 30 carry or that 277 round you're talking about. I'm sure they're great. I'm sure they're fantastic. I'm sure they meet all of the juicy ballistic areas they need to meet to be effective. And I'm not saying that that's not worth pursuing. But man, in this environment, when it comes to the difficulty of getting ammunition, you sure would think that they would sort things out in a way that they could most certainly make sure they're filling all the existing orders first. And that's not to say that they're not. I mean, there is ammo reappearing on the shelves. Now, granted, it's not the price people want to pay. It hasn't gotten lower yet, but the prices have tried to trickle down a bit, and availability is breaking free a bit. Yeah. Not quite what we want, but at least it's available.
A couple of things. So I think as far as the ammo prices go, I think the ammo prices are at a point now where they're acceptable. I mean, yes, they're not as cheap as they used to be, but they're definitely not $1 a round. You're still hovering around 50 or 60 cents a round, which is it sucks, but I don't see it going lower than that because Ruger already entered the fray, and they were supposed to be the ones that, caused the price to go back down because they're manufacturing all this ammo. But guess what? They jumped in at 50 or 60 cents a round as well because that's the new normal. And that's what people can pay. They've already shown that they're willing to pay that. So get used to it, 50 to 60 cents a round. The only thing that I can say hurts the most is shotgun shells. It's really, really difficult to pay 75 cents, $1 a round for really good shotgun shells. And you're like, God, I don't want to pay that much money for a shotgun shell.
Well, I will say this, that out of all of the different ammo price increases, one thing that kind of blew me away a little bit with Vista, and don't get me wrong, so like if you don't understand like the kind of company Vista is, all right, so Vista is like a big conglomerate, a big umbrella that owns a bunch of different companies. So under that Vista umbrella, you've got Federal. They just purchased Remington, which is awesome. We're going to be shooting a lot of Remington ammo this year.
Yep. It was Remington, not Ruger.
Remington, right.
Yes. Sorry,
Remington sent us a lot of their new ammo to try out this year, so we'll be shooting some of their stuff. So it's interesting, though, to see that like so many of these large heritage brand ammo companies have been purchased by Vista, and of course that list is growing, and that's great. Like, it's always awesome to acquire companies and make these awesome things happen. And not to say anything bad about that, but when I noticed a letter that Vista put out for getting into the 2022 year frame, they actually mentioned that they're not going to be accepting new primer orders.
Yep.
So how in the world are you supposed to, let's just say, start an ammo company, right? Like, I know that there's a lot of companies that I've talked to, like Phoenix Ammunition, the owner of that company. I was talking to him, and I'm like, hey, what are you guys going to do about primers? I mean, if they're not accepting new primer orders, how are you going to get new primers? They're like, well, we've already got an outstanding order for, X amount of primers or whatever.
10 million.
Well, that's all good and fine.
Yeah.
Like, all right, so if you put in an order for primers in 2021 for, let's just say, I don't know, however many tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of primers, okay, yeah, they're going to fulfill that order. But if they're not accepting new orders in 2022, how can you have some form of ongoing business as a small ammo loader, right? If you want to have a small ammo company, how are you supposed to compete with the big guys when they won't even accept orders for primers?
And when you say smaller companies, you're talking about like Phoenix or Lehigh or like guys Underwood. So we know the name, we know the brand. You don't necessarily associate them with being a small, manufacturing group. But compared to like Vista Outdoors or Federal, they're not even a blip on the proverbial radar.
I mean,
like these guys are so small compared to the output that these companies put out. So you're right. They're gonna have issues getting primers. They might have outstanding back orders in place, but what happens when those run dry?
I mean, you've got the guys from Grind Hard, there's Phoenix Ammunition, there's Underwood, Lehigh. I mean, Barnes, loads their own ammo, but of course Barnes makes a bunch of different projectiles. I mean, Sierra's got their own ammo line now. I mean, it's just kind of crazy to think, like, what's going to happen if you can't get components?
You have to go overseas, man.
Well, it's just kind of weird to see. Like, so this new, year that we're getting into, and looking here literally this week on the heels of SHOT Show and all the stuff that's going on and all the new products. I mean, dude, I've seen so many awesome new reloading products. And I'm thinking, I mean, that's cool, but how are you going to load ammo if you can't get primers and powder? Like, if you can't get components, what's the point of the newest reloading widget when you can't get components?
Tell that to the company that just bought 12 Dillons, and their goal was to start a ammo manufacturing business. And then 2022 hits, and they go, hey, guess what? We can't give you any components. No brass.
That's right.
No head stamps. No primers. And you have 12 Dillon, like 1200s.
Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing a situation where a few companies step forward and start servicing the gun community in a little bit more holistic way. And of course, we're not saying that like the Vista umbrella of companies like Federal and Remington and things like that. Those are awesome. Those are awesome people. I love Federal Ammo. I love Remington Ammo. Those are heritage brands.
I love ammo.
I love ammo, period. I've never met a round of ammo I didn't like.
That's right.
But those brands have been around a long time, and they've got a lot of respect, and they've earned their name, and they've really made great ammo. But on the back end of that, it's like, man, if you can't get components, I mean, surely there's going to be a need and want for them to service the holistic gun community with components. But maybe it's just that there is such a shortage still because of the demand for ammo. All right, now, if we see the demand go down for ammunition, does that mean, okay, all right, now we're sitting on all these primers we got to sell, this powder we got to sell? Of course, that's going to be the case. Eventually, the demand will decrease, and they'll be able to service people. So it's not, I don't want it to sound like it's some glowing conspiracy that they're somehow shutting down the availability of primers to the public at large in order to, have a monopoly on the gun or the ammo manufacturing business.
That's
a
conspiracy,
not the reason,
man. Conspiracy.
That's not the reason. It's just an inconvenience for people that enjoy messing with the stuff on their own, and it's a real pinch for some of the smaller companies that rely on the big guys for primers and components.
Well, then, okay, so take a look at the new SIG 277. SIG, by no means, they are not a dumb company. They know what they're doing. They have tons of money. They have tons of R&D. They have tons of contracts.
They got that military contract.
They brought that round to market.
Got that Uncle Sam money, baby.
Yeah, and we can sit here and say, oh, that was the worst move in the world. But guess what? There's guys that are a lot smarter than us that made a decision that said, that's a good idea. We're going to bring a 277 round with a completely new rifle. And the preliminary numbers are decent. You're talking, what I've seen, 3,000 feet per second out of a 13.5-inch barrel. And
what grain bullet?
It didn't say. It just said, it just gave us the dimensions.
Okay.
So
cool. I'll have to look into that.
But I mean, that's a screaming around.
Well, let's look that up.
Yeah, I mean, look it up. From what I was reading, they said they were really aiming for armor penetration. They want, and we all know that when it comes to armor, speed is the name of the game. Velocity is the name of the game. So if you can get around up to a high enough velocity,
$8,000.
it's just going to punch right through the armor. So
$8,000 gun.
Oh, I don't doubt
the
it.
MCX Spear. I'll be dang.
Yep.
I'll be dang. Let's see what we got here. This is a 13-inch.
Yep, 13-inch barrel.
20-shot mag. All right, and that is in the, I want to see a little more information about the cartridge. 277 Fury.
Yeah.
I'll be. Now, it's interesting. I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole on this particular podcast because I know we're kind of recapping 2021 and talking about some of the things we can expect for 2022. But arguably, all right, Chad and I just did a very detailed video on some of the recent hunts we went on using the 6mm ARC. All right. Now, this appears to be a long-action cartridge, the 277 SIG Fury or whatever. Yeah, the Fury. However, the 6mm ARC is making a huge splash as well in the long-range shooting world and in the hunting world. Chad and I have a complete dissertation we put together on that you can expect to see soon. But this is interesting. This is news to me. So let's look up the specs on this cartridge and see what we're working with. Just real quick for fun. We've got time in this particular podcast.
As well. But what I will tell you, what I haven't shot a 6mm arc, but from what I saw, it performed amazingly well. So I was very surprised to see how well it performed on live game.
All right. 80,000 PSI chamber pressure. Whoa. Yeah, holy crap. That's a high pressure round.
Pretty nasty.
All right. It uses a 7.06 or a 278 caliber bullet. That's kind of strange there. That's cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. Just real basic here. Some basic numbers. The cartridge uses a case that is the same length and diameter as the 308 Winchester. So, of course, it's going to fit in an AR-10 size action or a SCAR 17 or SCAR 20, what have you. Each cartridge case consists of a stainless steel base coupled to a brass body via a locking washer.
This is what I talked about, yeah.
Stainless steel has a significant higher yield strength than brass, allowing the engineers to increase chamber pressure. That makes sense. Let's see. So we're talking a 135 grain bullet, a 140 grain hunting bullet. Sammy warns that the maximum average pressure levels greater than 65,000 psi may present increased risk of unsafe cartridge case or firearms rupture, thus require the cartridge case and or firearms designs that depart from traditional practices, such as changes in materials, constructions, and other design criteria. Obviously, if you're going to have a more powerful cartridge, you have to build a more powerful gun.
Basically, they're saying this bullet is for this gun only.
We're talking a 135 grain bullet at over 3,000 feet per second.
Yep.
Wow.
Out of a 13-inch barrel.
You're talking 2,694 foot-pounds of energy at the muzzle on a 135 and a 140 generating 2,706 foot-pounds of energy. Now, to compare that to 6mm arc, that's a pretty stout cartridge. Now, granted, this is also a long action, so you do have to contend with a larger, more robust rifle.
Heavier rifle.
Rifle. Now, there's great performance potential in the 6 arc. Now, it's obviously not these numbers, but you know what? For being a short action, I think the 6mm arc has got a lot going for it. So that's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, Matt.
No, I mean, that was one of the standout things that I saw that really, because when around SHOT Show, you see a lot of like little quirky things pop up and you're like, oh, that's a little bit innovative or that's kind of neat. But when you see a company like SIG announcing a completely new cartridge, I mean, you have to do some investigative work. That's a big deal.
And it's funny when you look at like the old M1 Garand and 276 Peterson before they ended up changing it to M2 Ball and the 30-06. It's like everything just goes full circle.
Yep.
You know, the original Garand was supposed to be a 10-shot and be in 276, and now look what you got. 277 SIG, 276, all over again.
20-shot box magazine.
That's right. 6.8 by 51 millimeter. So I guess you're almost taking that 6.8 spec and just going with a 308 case rather than the short action case like you see in 6.8 spec, which is smart.
Wow.
I mean, I wonder what the ballistic coefficients are on those projectiles. So
maybe
this is going to require, I believe, a deep dive that Chad and I will look into on the main channel. Maybe at a later date.
Maybe that's a little bit outside of LLP territory, but I will say,
but still interesting.
You and Chad would be the ones to find that information. But what I will tell you, if that is 6.8, then that might be a precursor to the military standard round, because the military was switching to 6.8, but it wasn't going to be 6.8 SPC.
Now, the ammo is not currently in stock, but 6 Hour's website shows the ammo price as $33.95 a box of 20. It says of ammo available for purchase on January 24th. So this is still very new. The ammo's not even available yet, but here we see, the cartridge just looks like a 308. I mean, essentially a 308 type case, neck down to a 6.8. Kind of seems to be the overall principle. Looks like the bolt head is the same diameter overall. So looks like for your AR-10s, I would imagine probably be nothing more than a barrel swap.
Yeah.
Maybe a different gas block. But for the most part, looks like everything else should be pretty similar. Now, outside the design aspects now, this is an, 80,000 cup cartridge. So I would approach with caution there, and I would defer that to we would probably need to hear more information about the cartridge, about the gun, maybe get some more information from SIG stay tuned. We will have a complete dissertation coming out on this cartridge as soon as we can get more information.
Yep.
I don't want to tell tales out of school, so we won't go there yet, but cool, man.
Yeah, man.
Awesome.
That's what caught my attention. Not that I'm going to be shooting it at all, but you
might.
Well, I probably will just so I say I could, but
That's right.
when it comes to long action stuff, I love my 30-06, man.
Dude, tell me about it, man. Tell me about it. So 2022, man, shows some awesome stuff on the horizon. I mean, there's great innovations in the gun world. Things are somewhat getting back to normal for a lot of people. Folks are much more awake to all the things that are going on. They're ignoring the division.
Yep.
They're being more objective. They're being more fair. They're listening to each other.
Asking
They're
more
holding their
questions.
politicians accountable. I mean, there's a lot of great things that are happening, right? Primaries are this year, so it's going to be a really sticky year for a lot of folks.
Really important here in Georgia. I mean, Georgia is it's a battleground state. Like you said, there's going to be a lot of action here, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that there's going to be a ton of money pumped into Georgia because we have a governor's race, we have junior senator. Actually, I believe Warnock is he's the junior senator for Georgia. He's up for election this year. Ossoff is not. Ossoff has the whole 6-year term. So basically, Georgia's representation in Washington is a completely Democrat. So
we also have a chance to get constitutional carry passed in Georgia as well.
Absolutely right.
So that's something that's totally
lots
huge.
of stuff happening here in Georgia. So it's going to be a big year for us, and hopefully we get that taken care of.
Well, I certainly must say that I am very eager to get my boat back out and do some fishing. So you can definitely expect some fishing content over on the channel, as well as lots more hunting stuff. I'm looking really forward to getting out in the woods and getting some more hunting time in. Expect the revolver hunting video to come up. Expect the episode with John and Shermichael to go on Warrior Poet in terms of our hunting. Also, we've got just a great bunch of stuff on the way, man. I think you guys are going to be so happy with it. We've got more meltdowns coming this year. So I think 2022 is a great year for us. I don't want to go too far down the rabbit hole on this concept because I know we don't have a lot more time left in this particular podcast, but I just want to mention that, we've also had some really good gains that we've made with, YouTube directly. They've been very good to us and very helpful to us. And I'm very, very happy and proud to say that they've been very easygoing with us, and we're trying our best to make the channel the best that it possibly can be for you guys, and to make sure that the channel has good accessibility of content, that more people are seeing it, that it's available to more people. So we're certainly trying to do the best we can to work through all of these things that have happened. We lost our Facebook page just last year. Now, I'm not going to go so deep into telling you the reason, but I'm just going to say that it was a really dumb reason. Okay?
Very, very dumb.
Objectively, right? If we just look at this objectively, the reason was super dumb, and I'm not even going to talk about it because I think it was just really end up being a giant misunderstanding. But we are working on getting our Facebook page back, so that's been a giant cluster, trying to deal with that. And of course, it's just a rampant censorship that's just kind of there, and the bias that's there. But we're trying to work through it. We're trying to be fair. We're trying to look at both sides of the coin in terms of being, very objective and fair in our views, and not, being pricks about anything, okay? But I think that there is a little light at the end of the tunnel with the social media companies. I think that many of them are starting to understand that some of the policies are a little crazy, and I think they're getting some pushback from a lot of different sides of the aisle. It's not just the people they philosophically agree with. I think they realize that a huge subset of the people that follow them are certainly, they may not agree with them politically, but utilize their services. And I think I really want to try to remain positive in light of this, and positive in that I hope that maybe we're past that to some degree. I mean, don't hold your breath. I mean, there's people out there, just like there's the Never Trumpers, right? And just like there's the, MAGA crowd or whatever, what have you, right? Just like there are those extremes of each side of the token, there's also extremes that think, oh, well, these social media companies are the devil and they would never do anything to help you or I. And I don't know. I mean, there's perception and there's reality. And I think the reality, if we really just look at it objectively, I do believe that many of these social media companies are trying at least a bit to reach across and sort of be easygoing on some of this stuff. So we see the door creaking open. Now, granted, the hinges are rusty. There's no oil, and it's making awful racket, but the door is moving slowly, and we're hoping, that in time we can just get back to the way things were. Like, I'd love to see social media turn back to what it was, like 10 years ago. Yeah. Just a totally free and open environment for people to express their ideas, grow their followers and everything like that, and just put out the content they want, have a good time, and just be fair and honest with each other. And it was so cool in the early days. We've been doing this a long time, I want to see it get back to the way it was, 12, 13 years ago, 15 years ago, when all of this was in its infancy. There was a freedom in it that really I feel is really gone by the wayside. And I want to see it come back.
That was a very genuine statement, Eric. Completely different than the Chinese tennis player Peng Shuai. Hello, this is Peng Shuai. I'm okay. Goodbye.
Oh, boy. Well, it is time to say goodbye, unfortunately. Now, it's not goodbye forever. We will be back next week. Make sure you tune in each week for a new episode of LLP. We dive into a bunch of different concepts. If you haven't ever followed the podcast, trust me, you never know what we're going to talk about. You never know what kind of flight we're going to do. We have our Fight or Flight series where we try different booze and different food. You never know what subject we're going to talk about. You never know what direction we're going to go. It's like a roller coaster ride, and you're not strapped in. So we hope that you will always join us for a little bit of hilarity each week. So make sure you tune in each week. You can follow us on all the popular podcast outlets, Apple Podcasts and all of the other, Spotify and Stitcher, and there's a few others.
Literally everything.
Everything.
Amazon.
If it's there, we're there.
Yep.
All right. And we post these podcasts in video form over on the YouTube channel, Iraq Veteran 8888. You can find these in video form if you want to see our ugly mugs. You can also check out the videos as well. So big thank you to everybody that follows what we do and has supported what we do. I want to end on that note. LLP has it has grown in leaps and bounds. We're getting more viewership every single month. We're getting more downloads. And I think the podcast has grown steadily.
Yeah, I think the last time I checked the analytics, it was we're being listened to in over 86 countries. I mean, the viewership and the audio downloads have grown month over month. So, it really has grown from the very beginning. I remember the very first episode we did, and we were like, "Oh, should we continue to do this?" And then it just turned into this thing where it's just like two friends, two small business owners, two Americans, just talking about things that we enjoy talking about. And if you guys like it, then come along for the ride. If not, then keep scrolling. Also, in 2022, we're going to have many more guests here on LLP, so stay tuned for that. We've actually been making some changes to the studio. So you're going to see, the background will be pretty similar, but we are going to change up the overall setup we're using, and we hope that it's going to equate to better audio. All right. We also are running 3 cameras now, so we're trying to give you guys a little bit better visual representation. So we're really trying hard to bring the quality level of this podcast up to where it needs to be, and we hope you can see that quality, and we hope you enjoy it. Have yourselves a great week. We'll see you next time. Many more podcasts here on LLP. Have a good one and live free, be safe, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening to Life, Liberty, and Pursuit. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else podcasts are found. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review. We'd really appreciate that. You can support us over on Ballistic Inc. by picking yourself up some merch. And remember, guys, dangerous freedom. Have a good one.